Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of 30 Minutes Robotic Milking Edition. I'm Marcia Andrews, dairy science professor and extension specialist at University of Minnesota in St. Paul, and I'll be hosting this webinar today, along with your co-host, Jim Sulfur, dairy extension educator at the St. Cloud Regional Office. Hi, Jim.
Hi, and welcome, everyone.
Oh, let me see. It's not showing both of us. There it is. Good.
Hi, and welcome, everyone.
It's showing now. Thank you for the recording. Appreciate that, Jim. So before we get started with the presentation by the dairy manager today, I would like to go over some housekeeping items. So we do record these webinars. Probably those of you attending today are aware of that. And these will be posted on YouTube. But if you want to join the live discussion, if you're watching this as a recording, please go to z.umn.edu/30minrm to register, and you get your own unique Zoom link to join the live discussion virtually here, which is an opportunity to ask producer questions that you might have. Also want to remind you that we would like you to use the Q&A box to type your questions or comments. Jim and I will not be checking the chat box, and it's also very distracting when the chat shows on the screen. So please type your questions, the Q&A box, as we're getting closer to the end of the overview by our guest today, and then we'll read your question or comment on your behalf. So thank you for doing that. I'd like to remind you or invite you to attend our conference 2 months away here in Bloomington, Minnesota, near this Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, as an in-person event where we're going to be discussing a lot of technology, not just robotic milking, including robotic milking, but a lot of other technologies for dairy. Please join us at the website, www.precisiondairy.org, where you can find the agenda and the topics that we'll be covering. So hopefully many of you can join us. So without any further comments, I'd like to invite Jenna, who is manager of a large dairy operation, robotic operation in South Dakota. So Jenna kindly agreed to take time from her busy schedule today of managing the dairy to join us and share with you their experience with robotic milking. Hi, Jenna. Thank you for joining us. I can see you, and you're good to go.
Okay.
Can you hear?
I cannot. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We're good to go, I think. Okay. So I'm going to go away and then let you give the overview of the dairy.
Okay, so this is Orland Ridge Dairy. The owners are originally from Washington. On the picture on the left, you can see this is an aerial view. The top part where the dirt is, that's where the second half of the barn actually is right now. This is just an older aerial view, so it's not there. And then the silage pad you can see on the east side there, and then the south side there's a small barn which has all of our commodities in it. You can go to the next. So this is a layout of our barn. The picture on the left. So we have 3 robots in each pen. We currently have 12 pens milking right around 1,800 cows. So that kind of gives you a good overview and size of how big our barn is. Picture on the right just shows the cows up the feed bunk. You can notice that we don't have headlocks in the main pen, just a feed rail. You can go to the next slide. This is a good picture of our lobby and just kind of the layout that we have. So we have what Lely calls a capital L shape. So you can see the 2 robots there, and then we have a satellite robot, is what we call it. So you can go to the next picture. You can go to the next picture. This is a picture of our separation pens. So this is on the back side of that satellite robot you saw. There's roughly 21 headlocks, 20 stalls, It can hold, we don't like to put more than 30 to 40 cows in there, but normally we only have around like 15 in there at a time. So this is where we do all of our breeding, all of our preg check, all our vaccinations, all of our treating of any cows of any sort. And then we also use this to train new heifers when we bring new heifers in as well. You can go to the next slide. This is our robot room. This is the big robot room. So there's 4 robots in this room. So you're currently looking at 2 pens basically in this room. We really liked this setup. The front half of the room where the door goes through, that's where our CUs and our chemicals are located as well. You can go to the next slide. If you want to skip to the next picture. Then this is our foot bath. We don't have our foot baths by the robot. They're at the other end of the pen. We liked this idea mainly because we didn't want to put anything in front of the robot that we felt might be intimidating, especially with just training a large number of cows. So we bed in our pens every other day because we have manure solids. So once the guys are done bedding in that pen, then he'll push them through the foot bath. The picture on the right, this is our, we call it a pit basically. This is where we milk our fresh cows. And then we also use this to do dry cow tubes as well. You can go to the next slide. You want to go to the next picture? Yeah. So then this is our manure pit and separation area. And the picture on the right just shows the bedding. So like I said, we bed in each pen every other day, basically putting fresh solids on. So basically within 24 hours of it made, it's going into a pen. Is pretty much how that works. And then whatever doesn't get used, then once the levels of the pit get to a certain level, then it pumps it to the lagoon. So, and that's kind of a brief overview of our cow or of our barn. Like I said, we're milking just over 1,800 cows today. We currently have 36 robots turned on. The next 6 will be turned on in the next 10 days, and then the last 6 will be turned on hopefully in the next 3 weeks. So that'll put us right at 48 robots.
Okay, thank you, Jenna. That was a quick overview. I'm sure there'll be quite a few questions that might come. So huge, a lot of work there with going on to 48 robots, obviously 36 now. We don't have questions yet, so I'm going to ask you, how do you handle your employees? I mean, how many employees you need to be able to, take care of all these robots, how difficult it is maybe to find them and things like that. I was just curious about your labor management on the dairy.
Yeah, so I can talk about labor a little bit. So we have roughly around 12 employees right now. 3 of the employees moved out here from Washington with the owners. And then the rest of the guys are all local people that we have found. We haven't really had any issues finding more people. We've always been able to retain staff. And if we do lose someone, we've been able to find someone pretty quick. We anticipate with adding more robots that we'll probably add maybe 2, maybe 3 more people. So that should put us right at about 15 people total, hopefully when we're all said and done.
Okay, good. And again, if anybody has any questions, comments for Jenna, please type those in the Q&A. Jim, do you have a question? I don't see you yet. Are you here or my screen is not showing? I also noticed a delay because I was on the new picture and you would ask, can you put the new picture? And I already had the new picture. So I don't know what's going on today with the technology, but hopefully everybody got to see all the pictures. There's Jim too. Okay, cool. Got it to work. Awesome. Jim, do you have any questions before people start typing their own questions maybe?
Yeah, I'm sure people would have a lot of questions on kind of the metrics and stuff. And I did all jerseys. I saw jerseys on some of the pictures. So just want to cover metrics. They all like to know somatic cell count, visits per cow, milk per cow, those fat tests, those kind of metrics.
Yeah, so I can go over the numbers a little bit. So all jerseys, like you noticed in the picture, Jim, that's correct. Visits right now we're sitting at about 2.6, and then refusals sitting about 3.2, a little high, partly because we have so much free time right now. Somatics we're sitting right. Usually we sit between 150, and then in the summer you'll see it peak up a little bit higher, closer to 180, just because of the bedding and not being able to get it as dry as we would like. Fat, protein, we run about a 5.3 fat and about a 4.1 protein, so pretty good components. So we've been pretty happy with that, and then that equates to about 84 pounds of energy corrected milk.
That's good. And then did you mention how many cows per pen you have right now? Per robot, I should say, not
So,
per pen.
Before we started training, before we started adding cows, we were sitting at about 180 cows per pen. Right now we currently only have 2 pens that are that high. Every other pen is right around 100, 140, just because we're training in new cows. So we wanted to have enough free time to train those new cows as well.
Okay, makes sense. Looks like we're starting to get some questions from the audience here. First question actually about genetics. Which sires are you using? I don't know if you even know that question, the answer to that question, Jenna, but which sires are you using right now?
Yeah, so we're kind of in a unique situation right now with genetics and sires and bulls. Right now we aren't breeding anything to Jersey right now. Everything is being bred to beef, and then we're putting in a lot of beef embryos. We used to breed a lot of heifers, but unfortunately our custom raiser, that situation just didn't work out. So until we have our heifer raising facilities figured out what we're going to do long term, right now everything's just being bred to beef. So we get all of our replacements from their dairy in Oregon, and they send 50 heifers. Basically, they were sending 50 heifers once a month at like 30 to 50 days in milk, just to keep our numbers up.
So you're just buying or bringing the heifers. Okay. And which particular breed of beef you're using, or doesn't matter, or what are you using for beef?
So for the beef semen, we're using a Sim Angus. And then the embryos are 100% Angus.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Oh, okay. Oh, cool question. Usually don't get questions about breeding. About breeds. That's or genetics. That was an interesting question. I wouldn't know that's what you're doing. So good. Jim, I'm going to take the next question.
Yeah, it's a labor question again. So how do you have those 15 people divided? Do they work in certain robots, so they kind of work across all the robots? How do you organize those 12 or 15 people that you've got?
Yeah, good question. So we have one guy who does our feeding. And then we have one guy who is pretty much spends all of his day in the mini loader. In the morning, he's doing bedding. And in the afternoon, he's scraping the dry cow pens, because we don't have automatic scrapers in our dry cow pens. We only have automatic scrapers in the robot pens. And then we have one guy on staff who is pretty skilled in the robots, and he can fix about 90% of our robot problems. So he spends a lot of his days doing just general maintenance or fixing things or any projects he might have going on. And then we have one maternity guy who's always in maternity. He takes care of the calves and the fresh cows. And then that usually leaves us with, right now we've got about 3 to 4 people going through the pens. So right now we have 12 pens. And basically when they go into a pen, they're in charge of fetching, raking the stalls every day, scraping the crossovers, and then they clean the robots as well.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, it's very labor efficient.
Right. You have to be right. Many robots. I had a question. I forgot what it was. It was related to labor too. Will come to me later, I guess. But so that handyman, if you will, the handy person is very key, I think, to make sure that you do in-house a lot of the repairs, like you said, right? Which probably saves you a lot of money too, right? And do you have a dealership nearby that for major things that happen, are you on a maintenance schedule kind of thing that they come and do those things for you, or how does that work for the maintenance of the robots?
Yeah, so our dealership is out of Pipestone, and they're about an hour away. So pretty close, but still a little far. Right now, they take care of about half of the maintenance items, and then our technician guy on staff will take care of the other stuff. We're hoping long term that we'll be able to do everything, and then we won't have to depend on them for maintenance so much, and just have to depend on them for emergency purposes.
And it's mostly of your labor force like Hispanic, or they're more like Americans, or what is the mixture there?
Mostly Hispanics, and then
Okay.
we have myself, and we also have another herdsman who helps me out, and he also does the breeding for us as well. And then we have my boss, who is the manager here, and he takes care of kind of the employee management and feed management stuff.
Interesting. So, okay, interesting to see that.
So Jenna, I have a question for you. I'll ask the one that popped up first. Do you have somatic cell counters with your robots, or how do you manage milk quality, or do you just use conductivity? What do you use there?
So we don't have the somatic cell counters on our robot. So we just get the somatics from the plant. And then as far as like detecting mastitis and stuff like that, we just use conductivity. And then as well with the conductivity, checking their 24-hour milk average. If they go down and their conductivity spikes, we usually go check them. I think that in the future, what we kind of have been talking about is putting somatic cells on the satellite robots. So just one of the 3 robots in each pen.
Okay.
And then that way you wouldn't have to spend the money to do all 48. You could just, do the 16 satellites and save a little bit of money that way, but then still get some information about some of the cows to help with management decisions.
Okay. So using the information from the robot, how do you handle sick cows? Is the robot helping you detect them, and how do you use that information?
Yeah, so we pretty much depend on our software system to make decisions as far as health stuff goes. And we have health reports that we look at in the morning right away, for one for fresh cows, and then one for just the general herd that we look at. And that kind of gives us an idea of who we need to go look at that day.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question. Which system are you using? Is it NDAP with remediation or with SCR?
Yep. So we have the NDAP. Yep.
Okay, that's what I've been
and we
seeing.
do use and we use dairy comp alongside of the Lely system as well.
Okay, for management and entering data into the dairy comp rather than Horizon. And in a previous webinar, we had the dairy from California. They had 24 robots and had the location system with NDAP. You guys have that too, or no?
We don't.
Okay, just curious. Okay.
We've talked about it, but it's just kind of been something we haven't really been interested in.
Okay. Jim?
Are pens divided? How do you sort out cows, or how are they organized? Are they by lactation, by stage of lactation? Do they stay in the same pen once they freshen? Do you move them between pens? Just how do you manage all those cows?
Yeah, good question. So we stage all of our cows by lactation. So all of the older cows are on the west side of the barn, so closer to the office. So that's like all of our 4th, 5th, and then the next couple of pens have our 3rds, and then our 2nd and 1st are towards the other side of the barn, kind of away from the people and away from most of the noise.
Okay, but all mixed, right? I mean, the stages are, the Daisy milk is mixed. It's just that you separate by parity. Okay.
Yep, just by lactation, not by Daisy milk.
Not by Daisy milk, right? Yeah, that's more commonly done, actually. We just had one webinar, one of these sessions where the producer in Wisconsin separates them by, it's not very common separating by Daisy milk. Anyway, how do you manage the amount of data that's coming? It's a lot of robots, a lot of data. I don't know if that's your responsibility, who does this, but the analysis of this is quite a bit probably. Who does that and how you do it?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of data. I just said to my boss last week that I was like, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed with the amount of robots and the amount of data, but just lots of different reports. We try to make our reports as simple as possible to just focus on what you need out of that report. And we have lots of people looking at our data. My boss looks at the data as well, our other herdsmen, our FMS as well. He looks at a lot of numbers too, and our nutritionists as well. They're very familiar with the Lely system. So just
veterinarian
reports,
doesn't, basically. Right? The veterinarian probably not as much.
Our veterinarian isn't as familiar with Lely, but she does look at our dairy comp mostly.
Dairy comp mostly. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Jim?
How many days a week do you run your foot bath, or what's your foot bath routine? All the cows the same day? Just walk through how that works.
Yeah, so we bed pens 1 through 4 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so then in return, they get their foot bath Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then pens 5, 6, 7, and 8, they're Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So then they get their foot bath Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So we run 2 days of formaldehyde and 1 day of copper sulfate.
Okay.
So essentially 3 days a week, the whole herd gets run.
Yeah.
But every day there's different pens being run through the foot bath.
And that's throughout the year, right? I mean, because you guys are cross vent and it's kind of, you can actually use it throughout the year. Okay. Okay. What about feeding? Do you have just one type of concentrate in the robot? Do you have different types? Walk us through like how many pounds you feed on average. I mean, a little bit about your feed tables.
Yeah, so we just one feed type right now. I did the math and we're roughly around 8 pounds of pellets per cow. Our concentrate per 100 weight is at 14 pounds, which is a little higher than we'd like to be long term. We'd like to lower that quite a bit. For as far as the PMR, what's in it, we have cottonseed, beet pulp, amino, mineral, silage, and haylage, and then ground corn and soy hulls.
Okay. Do you know if your nutritionist is balancing that partial mix ration for what is the average production and then how much more you compensate for in the robot box by feeding more to your high producing cows last year, late lactation, etc.? Do you know what the pound, what is balancing it for? So doesn't matter if you don't know this. Okay, I was just curious.
So I'm trying to think about how our milk access is set up. So it's set up for the first 0 I think the cows are like 0 to 45 days. And so they're on a little bit of the higher side. And then it goes the 45 days to 2 weeks before dry off. I'm not exactly sure what we're given
roughly.
In between, but I know that that's where it's split. And then in the heifers, it's split 0 to 75. And then the 75, and then 2 weeks before dry off, it tapers off.
Okay, so you have the 3 stages, if you will. Okay, cool. Jim?
Yeah, I have a question, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are thinking the same thing I am. 48 robots, who gets to take the nighttime calls? Because I don't know, how many do you have? I mean, that's got to be unruly, even with that many robots.
Yeah, it's honestly not as bad as you think. It's really not as bad as you think. I was just talking with our FMS this morning that I was like, honestly, our calls aren't that bad. As far as night calls go, my boss takes care of majority of the night calls. Just because his schedule is a little bit more flexible. He doesn't really have like day-to-day tasks. He has things he just does throughout the day. So his schedule is a little more flexible. So then he takes care of most of the night calls. If he's gone, then myself and Gerardo, our technician on staff, he will help take care of the night calls. We do have 2 people here at night. We have a married couple that works at night. And they know a little bit. They're still learning because they haven't been on the night shift very long, but they're learning how to fix the easy stuff. So that way my boss doesn't have to come out here all the time. But
okay, a little more detail about how the cow, when they go into the robots, like do they go to the robots right away, or do they stay milking in that pit for a while, or is that's just for 1 or 2 milkings? Just a little bit of that protocol for moving cows into the robots.
Yeah, so to train our heifers, basically what we do is when they come in, we try to leave them in the separation pen for like 10 to 14 days, and we'll push them 3 times a day. And then after that, we kick them to the big pen. Once they go to the big pen, then they get put on an 8-hour fetch. And so whenever they hit 8 hours and somebody happens to be in that pen within the next couple hours, then they'll be on the fetch list. And then basically what I do is I kind of watch to see which heifers are learning and which heifers are figuring it out. And as soon as they figure it out, I take them off the 8-hour fetch and they go to our normal fetch. And then they just kind of go from there, basically, is how that goes.
So they're saying that, so the heifers do stay for a while in that, in that smaller pen, if you will. What about cows?
Yep.
Cows too. Oh, okay.
So like for fresh cows,
right, fresh cows.
When we bring in fresh cows, we milk them in the robot that afternoon, and they go straight to the big pen, and we
Oh.
never see them again
So
unless they show up on the fetch list.
Okay, so those are cows you don't need to do because they're already trained, kind of thing. Okay. All right.
Yep. Yeah, because they're already trained, so we don't
Mhm.
we don't hold them back or anything.
Okay, so they go right to the big group. Okay, cool. Jim?
We have a question basically, you have a cross vent barn, I think. So I think this will be self-explanatory, but when it's really cold out, do you have any freezing issues, or how do you manage? Do you have any fogging issues on your cameras above the cows or anything? Any kind of environmental issues, I guess?
Nope, we haven't really had any fogging issues in the 2.5 years we've been here. As far as cold weather, we're able to keep the barn above freezing in the wintertime. So that's been very beneficial and very helpful for the robots to keep them from freezing. So usually we just we shut the curtain about as close as we want. Basically we leave it open about like 6 inches in the coldest. And then we can go down to a minimum of 6 fans and still overturn our air and have good air speed.
So far, not a problem in the winter. And we had kind of a bad winter this year. So, so good to see
Yeah.
that nothing happened. That's good to know. You have jerseys, and jerseys, of course, from our experience, they tend to do go to robot a lot more and a lot of refusals. What's your strategy to make sure that the robot's not being overused by animals that are just kind of going around and around trying to get more concentrated and things like that?
Yeah, we definitely, we haven't really done anything specific as far as like trying to prevent them from refusals. We just, when my bosses built this place and we're planning for this place, they really liked the idea of the free flow concept, and they just wanted the cows to just do their own thing. So we haven't really done anything, but maybe one day we'll have to do something. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Jim, there's one more question, so I want to address
this,
that.
I'll expand a little bit. The question is specifically, do you have glycol
or a liquid,
on the
right?
robot? Yeah, or a liquid, and monitor ketosis, or do you manually treat them? So how do you deal with transition cow diseases? I'll just expand a little bit beyond that. Do you have many? What do you do with them? This specifically is ketosis.
Yeah, we don't have any liquid feed in the robot. So as far as like managing fresh cows, what we do is we have a fresh cow health report that's set like pretty low for like sick level awareness to throw her on the report. And then what I do also is I check every fresh cow each day that's new. If she's like less than 3 days of milk, I check their rumination. And if their rumination levels are like below 100, I usually go out into the barn and look at them. As far as like treating, like what we do, I don't treat a lot of fresh cows. Usually if we do, it's an occasional milk fever here and there, which is common in Jersey, especially in our older cows. But
so not so much related to ketosis. Yep. Okay.
No, we don't tend to struggle with ketosis a whole lot. If we do, we just do a bottle of dextrose with some vitamins in it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, no open questions. Any other questions that you have, Jim?
No, I don't think so. You did a nice job, Jenna.
Yeah, so covered a lot of ground in a good, efficient time. Like you're efficient, even this here. It's appreciated. So yeah, if we don't have any other questions, last call for anybody to for questions or comments. Otherwise, we'll let Jenna go. She's super busy. So again, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today to talk with us and to participate on this webinar, and invite everybody to come back. Oh, looks like we do have one question. So since we do have a minute left, oh, thank you. How many milk houses do you have? So quick there, and then we'll stop recording. How many milk houses?
So there's 8 of the big rooms that hold the 4 robots, and then there is 16 of the little rooms. So yeah, 24 rooms total, 12 on each side.
Okay.
Does that all go to one bulk tank then, or how does it compile it? I think might be part of the question.
Yeah, good question. So I didn't explain that super well, but basically all of our milk lines are above the rooms, and they meet at the central point of our barn. There's a little room, we call it the pump room, and it pumps into a vat. And then once that vat gets to a certain level, then it pumps all the way down to our milk house, which is on the west end of our barn by the office.
Okay, makes sense. All right, thank you so much. Again, thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Jenna, for being here and participating, inviting everybody to come back May 18th for our episode 29. And so long, everyone. Thank you, and I'll stop the recording.